Hi everyone, I'm Roshan Farhan, the founder CEO of GoBillion. We're a Y Combinator-backed social commerce startup, globally headquartered in San Francisco and India offices in Delhi, Bangalore, and Guwahati. Today, it is my extreme honor and privilege to be in this esteemed event, TEDxIIMShillong, sharing my experiences of moving fast and building a company, especially from a small town in India called Guwahati, and what are my personal experiences that really drove this decision of building a company from scratch. I come from very normal, background, right? Come from middle class family in Guwahati. Of course, studied in the city, in small towns, did my schooling in college here, did my engineering from NIT, right? So, generally for any kid that you ask in 11th, 12th, especially was pursuing science, what next? It's either probably engineering or medical sciences, right? So I was one of those guys that feared for IIT, didn't quite make the cut. Fortunately, kind of got into it, through the EIEEE process and got into the NIT Silchar. Now, Silchar, for some of you who might not know that, it's a small town in Assam, in the northeastern part of the country. And those initial days in NIT Silchar were extremely, character building for me, right? But I'm not here to talk about my days in NIT Silchar or, my next step of doing an MBA from IIM, or let's say, what I did in my early corporate life. I'm here to talk more about what my personal experiences that really shaped my mindset and my worldview and really motivated me to build a company from scratch and move fast and execute well. As I mentioned, I come from a small town. This very interesting anecdote I want to share. The story of a small tea shop in Silchar, just outside my institute gates at NIT, where I used to frequently visit as a 20-year-old guy, probably in the summer of 2010 with my friends and family. This is probably one of those very warm afternoon summer evenings in the summer of 2010. After classes, it was my daily habit to go to this small tea shop just next to the gates, have tea with my close friends, probably talk about the day, about the daily life in campus, about which sports or event is being organized next, and just a normal humdrum of daily life, right? But over time, I got really acquainted and friendly with the owner of this tea shop. He was a middle-aged man, probably around in his late 30s or early 40s. And of course, over time, I tried to understand. We share a lot of our stories of my own family, of my upbringing, of my daily day-to-day academic life in campus, and also his stories as well, right? He had a small family, 2 daughters. Of course, he came from a slightly lower middle income segment. His daily challenges in, of course, providing for his family, running a small business establishment, and in general, how he looks at life itself and the kind of convenience or services he avails, right? And that was a very formative years for me as well. And that experience really lasted with me of how people in small towns, especially the lower middle income segment or middle income segment, really kind of associates with life itself, right? And typically, what happens is, generally as we go older, especially I spent a lot of time growing up and spend interning in Delhi and Bombay. I also saw the other side of the spectrum of how life is different, especially in terms of commerce or retail in the larger cities of the country. Now, of course, over time, I did my MBA from IIMShillong, and then started my journey in consulting, management consulting. Fortunately, working for some of the largest consulting firms in the world as well, Deloitte, EY, and Accenture. And I saw how the other half functions, right? I was fortunate to interact with a lot of industry leaders, work closely with all the consulting leaders, and saw how industry and businesses function on a global scale. But even though, I was probably in the forefront of consulting and exciting work in the industry, a small part of me was still not satisfied. I still had the longing inside that I'm not doing what it needs to be done in terms of having a very fulfilling life. I'm sure a lot of you here in the audience would have seen the movie Swadesh, where the main protagonist, who was living in the US, working for a very large organization, still has this, void inside him that he feels that he should probably go back to his small town roots in India and solve for the community at large. And I was no different, right? I came from a small town, very connected to the roots, and I had this longing back. Can I go back to my roots and solve something from scratch in my hometown, Guwahati as well? Now, typically what we saw was, the more I interacted with people in the large cities in Delhi, that's what I was based in, I saw the other parts and I started appreciating the stark differences in people as well. I want to share another story. This is probably Jan 2020, right? I was almost out of my corporate job, jumping full time to entrepreneurship and had all the challenges possible. And very interesting story. I was actually in Guwahati at a point of time, and my best friend and now co-founder was in Bangalore, of course, in his corporate job. And he's someone I was very close to, pursued a lot of social activities together. And I remember making a phone call to him, asking, hey, Kulpradeep, I need some advice on a couple of health supplements that I need because I just started working out. I always take his advice in anything around health and nutrition. So I made a phone call saying, hey, what do you use, right? Do you think I should use probably a specific brand of, health supplements or any protein supplements as well? Now, of course, Kulpuri mentioned that, hey, I'm using this product X and I buy from this website. You should probably buy that as well. So I remember telling him that, hey, I saw a lot of reviews online, all these big websites on e-commerce, but I don't really believe all of them, right? So I'm going to just go and believe what you say. Why don't you buy it from me as well? And he said, fine, I'm actually buying a packet for myself. I'm going to ship one to you in Guwahati as well. And that happened, of course. But I just remember telling him one thing, that whatever you do, give me the best deal or best bargain possible, right? And of course, the transaction happened. I got the product, started using it. But that got us thinking, even though I was, let's say, in Guwahati, spending most of my time in Delhi, Kulpati was in Bangalore, we still connected subconsciously to a small town roots. The small town roots being socially connected to friends and family. You'll see a lot of people in small towns, especially the middle income segment and the lower middle income segment, are very closely connected to the communities. We pursue a lot of hobbies together, a lot of shared experiences together. And even shopping itself is a very social affair. I have good memories of me going to the vegetable mandi or the fish market in Guwahati with my friends and neighbors and buying, let's say, vegetables for myself, and my friend is buying vegetables for his family as well. And we always try and bargain with the shopkeeper that, hey, why don't you give us a group discount because you're buying at bulk? So this behavior of buying together and seeking for the best deals was always ingrained, right? And that got us thinking, and that's what led us to start building our company as well. And at the cornerstone for us, I remember, during that same time, I remember the memory of the tea shop guy back in 2010 when I was in my early college days. And that memory came back strong to me. And that's what got us motivated for building something for the Bharat, as we call it, the next 50 crore customers or the next 500 million customers in small towns who are extremely underserved by India's current e-commerce model, with very different needs and aspirations, and who are not part of the current e-commerce bandwagon in the most effective manner. Now let me tell you the second part of the story. Think of it like an intermission, right? Of what it takes to build a company and move fast and execute well, right? So now you understood that, hey, this was the formative was Roshan or myself, building a company from scratch, and what the reasons were building this company. But when I, of course, left corporate and deep dive into, really the actual work of building a company, and this is probably April 2020, the pandemic has just hit, everything just shut down, and all the market was closed. So it was a big challenging time. But our mission is very clear. We were very clear what we wanted to achieve: solve for these underserved customers very effectively. Now, for any entrepreneur that starts out, especially for someone like me, who's from a small town and doesn't have the social connections to get raised investment very fast, it was a very big challenge as well. The first challenge we faced was the problem of fundraising or the problem of finances. I had very limited savings, and so did my co-founder as well. So we pulled in some of our savings, probably 3 to 4 lakhs, and we said, hey, let's use what we have right now and start something from scratch. And honestly, in this current market scenario, 3 to 4 lakhs is nothing, right? Especially if you're dreaming of building a very big company and moving very fast. But we are very judicious with the money, and of course started making those very small things happen, right? So the second thing I want to talk about is building a great team. We could not afford the best people at that point of time, but we are very clear on our mission. And we're so clear that when we went and talked to people, especially the early team members or the first set of interns who started working with us, they could really feel the energy and the passion and the emotions driving me and my co-founder. So the first set of people that joined us was extremely mission oriented, extremely focused that, hey, we'll be part with Roshan and build this from scratch and make a difference in people's lives as well. And of course, that fundraising problem still persisted, but with this initial teams, we started moving. We started making the small things. We started talking to more customers. We started visiting the markets. In fact, I have still so many good memories and actually character building memories where, because we could not afford a large logistics team or let's say a large supply team, I was going and doing the last mile deliveries. I was doing the actual deliveries to customers. I was going to suppliers and collecting and procuring goods, day in, day out. Tough days, no doubt. And of course, I'll be very honest and say that I actually had a very tough time managing end-to-end everything. But now when I look back, that was very character building that really helped me understand what the customer wants, what do suppliers want, what does every node in the ecosystem, how do they function? The small nitty-gritties are extremely important while building a company. And of course, fortunately last year, we got into Y Combinator, were fortunate to raise a large round, got some very solid global investors on board. And now we've grown significantly as a company. So between the time we kind of started the company and last year, December, we grew it almost 180 times between what we started and what we ended at. The growth was phenomenal, and that too almost at bootstrap capital. And the reason I think in retrospect, and I keep on discussing with my co-founder also very informally, that what led to things moving fast? What are the small decisions we made and which converted to, let's say, some amount of success for our company? I think, as I mentioned, I will repeat this again, understanding the customers is key. I've seen so many entrepreneurs force fit a solution into customers. You need to understand what the customers want and then develop a product or a solution around it. It cannot be the other way around, where you've already developed the product or you're trying to force fit an idea into the customer's mind as well. Secondly, you have to get your hands dirty. Both me and my co-founder were really invested in the space. We worked day in, day out, hit the market on the ground running, and really interacted with every person possible in the ecosystem, so that we had a very holistic view of the problem and what you're solving. And lastly, and most importantly, really listening to the feedback that comes in. We should not have any sense of bias or ego. Sometimes I've seen some founders have that, hey, I know this problem the best, and I'll never listen to any feedback that happens, right? That's probably the wrong way to go about it. We are absolutely humble. We're absolutely grounded to the ground, and we listen to feedback that came. And of course, we prioritize what was important, what was the most important thing that we should solve now, and maybe which one we should schedule for later as well. And some of the most amazing experiences when I go and talk to customers now is how we have managed to make a small difference in their day-to-day lives, right? When they interact or buy anything from a company, of course, they have a very good experience doing that as well. And lastly, what is very important also, and actually the most important piece now that I think about is getting the right co-founder, getting the right person to build the company with. It's almost like a marriage. You're married to your co-founder for life, professionally speaking, right? I was fortunate and privileged to be building our company with my best friend for the last 15 years. Of course, we met at undergrad, did our computer science together, but we were absolutely connected as individuals. Right? We understood the blind sides that we both had. We understood the strengths that we both had. We were just a natural fitment, an extremely symbiotic relationship that we shared each other. And both of us come from very similar backgrounds, socio-economically speaking, small towns, tier 2, tier 3, studied in Silchar, as I mentioned, the same case story example. And of course, that we started building this together as well. But getting that co-founder is extremely important. So once you check those 3 check boxes, right? Getting the right co-founder first. Secondly, going after a very large market. We were very clear that we are solving for India's 500 million customers in small towns, the next frontier of India's e-commerce growth. And thirdly, getting tremendous traction and growth on the ground with limited amount of capital possible. And fortunately, we were absolutely focusing, executing, not getting distracted by the noise of someone else raising funds or someone making the big acquisition. And that proved to be a strong enabler for us to grow very fast as well. And typically, I'm going to share one interesting photo of some of our early successes. But this is a photo that is very close to my heart as well. If you can see my screen, this is a set of customers we've served recently in one of our target markets. They come from the lower middle income or the middle income segment of society, but they're extremely happy. And the reason I want to share this image with you, I find is very personally motivating, right? The fact that we can go to the set of customers, introduce a new way of buying and making a difference in their lives is very powerful and motivating for me. At least that's what makes me feel happy at the end of the day when I probably settle down after hard days of work as well. Net, I want to summarize by saying this. Number one, when you look at the overall picture, probably my story might feel like a textbook example, right? Came from middle class family, did not have probably all the facilities or exposure required. did his BTech from NIT, did his MBA from IIM, worked in consulting for a bit, then started a startup. But as I mentioned, life has come a full circle, right? What I like to share is, if you really are shaped by your personal experiences, if you really believe in a mission, you can make a company possible. You can make any vision into a reality. What is very important is moving fast and building fast. There's this quotation that I get really inspired by. It's on Facebook, where they say, move fast and break things. That's been a guiding principle for me. It's okay to make mistakes as entrepreneurs. It's okay to make mistakes as early professionals. What is very important is you keep on experimenting. You're not afraid of failure, and you move very fast. And the slight dichotomy being that once you move fast, you're also aware of what the downside can be. It's not like you are making a like a random throw in the dark. So you have captured all the situations possible, that if this works, this is what might happen. If this doesn't work, we will have the downside covered, and of course move on. But it's super important to move fast, getting your feet off the ground and building something from scratch. Today, I'm extremely thankful that I got this opportunity to share this with such an esteemed audience. And it is my privilege to be making a small change in India's small towns. This is Roshan Farhan signing off. Thank you so much for your time.